Hey guys, welcome to our YouTube Live. Apologies that we were a little bit late. We were having some challenges with the audio. This is the first time we've gone live in a long time, but I think we've fixed the audio issue. If you can hear me, team, I have my team here on this YouTube Live. Can you send me a message on WhatsApp telling me that you can hear me? I think I may have fixed the problem. Uh, so, Jen, Lee, can you hear me? Uh, testing, testing. Can you hear me, guys? Hello? Jen, can you hear me? Okay, great. All right. Great to know that you can hear me, Jen and Lee. So, welcome to our YouTube Live. Today, I'm going to be sharing a few things. This has thrown me off my game a little bit because we had some audio issues. But if you're watching the recording, welcome. In this live, I'm going to be talking about how to use artificial intelligence to grow your business and to improve your marketing. So, if you don't mind, I would love for you to just share in the chat where in the world you're dialing in from so I can welcome you. And I'd love to learn a little bit more about any challenges you're facing with artificial intelligence, what you'd like to learn about it in this live. And I'll try and tailor my presentation or this conversation for you. But generally, I'm going to be using something called a format framework. Um, hey, Mohammad Rizam, welcome. Good to see you here. Where in the world are you dialing in from? And thank you for joining us. I would love to learn what challenges you're having in artificial intelligence, or what you'd like to learn about artificial intelligence. But here's the framework that I'll be using, and this may sound a little bit meta, but I'm going to be sharing with you right now. I'm going to put in the chat the prompt that I used in artificial intelligence in ChatGPT before I went live. And then I'm going to share with you the framework that it presented to me so that you get a live demonstration of how I used ChatGPT to prepare for this live. And it might give you a sense of how okay, great. Mohammed says he would like to learn a framework that works. Welcome from Malaysia. Great to see you here. Where in Malaysia are you from, Mohammed? Uh, welcome, Tessa Lee. Welcome, Jen. Jenilyn from Philippines. Great to have you here. Where in the Philippines are you from? Oh, Penang. You know, I have family from Penang. Oh, is it Penang or Klang? I can't remember. Anyway, um, great to have you here. So, in terms of uh, the framework that we're actually going to be using to run this live is called the format framework. It's not a framework I came up with. It was an Australian teacher whose name I can't remember right now, but you can always ask ChatGPT that. Previously, you'd Google it, but now you'd ask ChatGPT. But here's the prompt I put in um, to. Oh, it's not letting me share the full prompt. Interesting. Maybe because there's too much text here, but uh, I'll try and share a part of that prompt. So I said before I went live on this live to ChatGPT, I'm about to do a YouTube live where I talk about artificial intelligence and how to use it in business. And I want to use a format framework. The format framework is spelled the number 4 and then MAT. Can you give me the key talking points using the format framework? And then there's more stuff. Mohammed, yes, this is actually, I don't know if it's recorded. That's a good question, but I'm pretty sure that the you should be able to go back and watch the live recording. If that's not the case, I apologize. Maybe we can do a live again or something like that. But just send out just send a message to our team and we'll try and get you the details. I've just put our team's email address into the chat so you can communicate with us on there. Okay. So the format framework basically uh, was created by, I think the lady's name was Bernadette. You know what? Let me just quickly check on who created the format framework, and it will tell me, and then I will be able to answer your question. Yes, Bernice McCarthy, actually not an Australian, an American educator and instructional designer. It was developed in the 1970s, 1980s, and basically the format framework follows four um, key uh, things, I guess, for want of a better term. Why is topic important to the audience? What do we mean by topic? How do we apply the topic? And what if you don't use or do use the topic? So, in this case, why is artificial intelligence important in business and marketing? What do we mean by artificial intelligence? How do we use artificial intelligence in our day to day lives and in business? And what if we don't use or do use artificial intelligence? So I'm going to be following that framework, which I got from ChatGPT or AI. So this may sound a little bit meta, but I hope that makes sense. So what do we mean by artificial intelligence? If you're not sure or if you have any questions around this, please share them in the chat and I'll riff off the questions you ask me. But I will get started by talking about it, and then I'm more than happy um, to go deeper if you have some specific questions. So, Mohammed, since you're watching, please feel free to ask us any questions or any concerns you have or anything you would like us to go deeper into as far as the what is concerned. But essentially, here's my understanding of what AI or artificial intelligence is. It started off a lot earlier than most of us realize. Some people say it goes back to the days of the Alan Turing, the Turing test, and so on. But artificial intelligence, which was previously called machine learning, has been in our lives for probably the best part of 50 years. And it's kind of been evolving in the background, and it is embedded into a lot of things, including and especially computing. Um, Most devices used some form of machine learning. And until maybe 2022, we didn't even call it artificial intelligence. We called it machine learning. And, you had chips on our computers. They were called, they had what is called neural networks. This has been around for a long time. And that was all part of the whole machine learning gamut. And then ChatGPT exploded onto the scene in 2022, and it they the term artificial intelligence came to the fore. Artificial intelligence was initially artificial narrow intelligence, and the thing that it is built on are called LLMs or large language models. And ChatGPT stands for I'm going to check to make sure I don't give the wrong information. But what does GPT stand for? I'm typing this into ChatGPT. So GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. Uh, Basically, it is trained on a massive data set before fine tuning for specific tasks. But to a large extent, it is predictive. So it is kind of predicting what the next word is based on what the previous words were, and that's why they call large language models. And until recently, it was believed to be artificial narrow intelligence because it was fairly word centric and fairly one dimensional, if you like. But as AI has been evolving at an alarming rate, we are moving towards what is called artificial general intelligence, which some people in the world are concerned about because there's all this talk about whether you know it will take over humanity and take over the world and develop a mind of its own, whatever that means. Some people are asking whether it is sentient, whether it has, self-preservation instincts. And this is all above my pay grade. I don't know the answer to all that. But when it comes to business, we should be using artificial intelligence, because I think to not use it is a disadvantage. And we can talk about that in the what if section. Now, I'd like to just check in with our viewers. Do you have any questions so far, just to make sure that I haven't lost you, or um, some feedback would be great so that I know that I'm on track. Jen or Lee, if you can share anything in the comments, that would be great. Even if you have any questions, I would really appreciate that. Um, I'll wait for a second to see if you can still hear me. Can you guys still hear me? If you can hear me, just type the word yes so I know something is happening. Guys, can you hear me? Okay, great. Where do you see the biggest opportunity for artificial intelligence in your industry? Thank you. What was the name you mentioned just now? So, Mohammed, if you're talking about the name of the person who created the format framework, her name was Bernice McCarthy. Uh, okay, great. You can hear me loud and clear. There's a bit of a lag between when I'm asking a question and the questions coming through. So I'll keep that in mind when I'm asking questions or I'm asking you to interact. But your interaction is very valuable because it gives me a sense of uh, I feel like I'm not talking into a void, which is one of the challenges you experience when you're doing a live of any sort. Mohammed, let me know if I answered your question and whether that was the name you were looking for. Bernice McCarthy is the person who came up with a format framework. Where do I see the biggest opportunities for AI in my industry? So I think, and we'll cover this in a bit more detail when we talk about the how, but in how as part of the format framework. But the biggest opportunities as a consultant and business owner are around brainstorming. So I see AI as a brainstorming partner. And so let's move actually into the. So we've talked about why artificial intelligence is important. No, we talked a bit about what it is. So I've talked about narrow business models and narrow artificial intelligence and how we're moving towards general artificial intelligence. Um, that was kind of explaining the what, the why it's important. I think it's important. Artificial intelligence is important in business because, to me, it's a non-negotiable. If you're not using it, you're at a massive competitive disadvantage, I think. And thanks for your question, Jen. What are the must-have AI tools in your business? I will come back to that in a minute. ChatGPT obviously is one of them, but that's a great question that I can riff on. Why is AI important? What do we mean by it? So we talked a little bit about narrow artificial intelligence and the move towards general artificial intelligence, which is where it is starting to become a lot more capable of understanding contextual. It's more contextually aware. So when you ask questions, it has a deeper understanding of things on the web, but it is nowhere nearly sophisticated enough as a lot of people assume it is. For example, if I want to ask questions about, you know, um, mathematical uh, mathematical analysis, which is not well documented online because it is at a very deep level of understanding of mathematics, it's unlikely that I will get a meaningful response, and I will probably receive incorrect information because AI still hallucinates. Hallucinations are when it kind of makes stuff up, because remember, it's just predictive text to some extent. It's just generating, it's filling in the blanks, and sometimes it'll often fill in the blanks even when it doesn't know for sure that it's correct. So I wouldn't be using artificial intelligence to look up medical knowledge or medical information. it is unlikely that AI has read the whatever the British Medical Journal or whatever, these highly specialized bits of text, which is very jargon heavy and typically only a doctor can interpret, or maybe legal, you know, documentation, which probably only a lawyer can interpret, because the word and the word or can mean completely different things in a legal context and in statute, depending on whether there's a semicolon between them, and it gets very technical. So there are limitations to artificial general intelligence as at today, which is we're recording this on the 29th of August, 2025. You're welcome, Lee. So we have um, we've talked a bit about why AI is important. We talked a bit about what we mean by artificial intelligence, that is predictive text. Let's talk a little bit about how to use it, which is why I would imagine a lot of you are actually here. So, um, in terms of how would you use artificial intelligence, I touched on this earlier. You would use it as a brainstorming partner. So, the thing about artificial intelligence is it is only as good as the questions you feed into it. That's my view, anyway. And the quality of questions is often a function of your level of experience and your level of expertise in that particular area. So, for example, I have a background in finance and strategy. I always jokingly say I suffered through a CPA because I didn't really enjoy it, but I finished it because it gave me valuable skills. And then I did my MBA. I loved it. I got a distinction average. I did it from the leading school in Australia here. And I've got a deep understanding, I believe, of finance and business strategy. And I've formally studied it. And I worked in the corporate world in banking and finance for about 15 years. So I have a lot of experience to draw upon. So I can ask artificial intelligence questions that will give me better answers because I can ask better quality questions. Here's an example. If I didn't have the experience I have behind me, I wouldn't necessarily have a deep understanding or have the awareness that cash flow and profitability are probably, in most cases, far more important than revenue. So when I put a question into ChatGPT to say, how do I grow my business? I wouldn't say, oh, how do I become $1 million business? Because it's meaningless to be $1 million business if you're unprofitable and you're in a cash flow hole. You know, any idiot can build a business that is making $10 million a year if they're spending $11 million a year on ads. That's not difficult. The question is, how do you build a $10 million business while putting $5 million of that $10 million in cash in the bank? How do you reinvest that so you're building an asset that continues to generate cash? How do you build a business that you're not enslaved by? A business that funds a lifestyle, at least that's the kind of business I'm interested in, a lifestyle that gives you freedom. Because ultimately, I believe that the ultimate kind of freedom is time freedom. And wealth is only, traditional view of wealth, which is money in the bank, is only a facilitator of that time freedom. I've spent many years chained to the desk and sitting in a cubicle, and I'm done with all that, and I don't want to ever do that again. I spend a lot of time at my desk now, but I do what I love. I'm working for myself. I'm trying to improve people's lives. I'm trying to work with small business owners. I'm working with causes I deeply believe in. And that is a completely different proposition to working in a large corporate where I'm trading my time for money. So I'm going off on a bit of a tangent, but my point is working for yourself is a gift that I have partly been able to achieve through online tools, including artificial intelligence, but not limited to it. So I've gotten a bit distracted. I've gone off on a bit of a tangent. So I'm going to try and bring it back to what I was talking about, that key framework, which is we've talked about what artificial intelligence is, we've talked about why it's important, uh, and how. That's right. I was talking about how I use artificial intelligence, and mainly I use it as a brainstorming partner. And excuse me, the output of artificial intelligence is a function, I was saying, of the input that you give it. And the input that you give it is the questions you ask it. If you ask poor quality questions like, how do I grow my business? To me, that's a poor quality question because it's not nuanced. Then it'll just tell me how to make more revenue. But to me, that is not a good business. To me, a good business is a business that is profitable and delivers value. Now, there are a lot of businesses out there that I consider to be scammers. They have very slick marketing machines, but the product they deliver is substandard. They sell they sell a lot of hype. They're very hypey typically, and they will sell the millionaire story. I made $1 million, and I'll make you $1 million by next Tuesday. Sure, they probably made $1 million, but that's revenue. My question is, how much of that is profit, and how much are you putting in the bank, and how many people are you delivering value to? Are you selling a product that is scammy and that doesn't actually deliver value, and you're just selling a dream that you're not that you're making a promise that you're not fulfilling through your product? If you're selling a course that you're saying will do something and the course doesn't actually deliver that, of course, that's assuming the person does the work and completes the course. There is that too. Only 6% of people actually complete courses. But let's say I'm selling a course in artificial intelligence, for example, and the course is really poor quality. And even if the person did the work, they would not achieve the result that you're promising they would get if they did do the work and finish the course. Then you're selling a scam. So to me, that is a bad business, even if you are making $1 million a year, because in the process, you're hurting people and they will never come back to you. And I think you're going to hurt your brand. If, however, you create a good quality course and you ensure that people get value from it by trying to improve the course, by getting feedback, and typically that's how you build a great course, through multiple iterations, then you're building a good business. So, and you're building experience. So this comes back to bringing it back to what I was saying earlier. Using artificial intelligence as a brainstorming partner requires you to ask good quality questions. So a poor quality question would be, how do I grow a business and make $1 million a year? A better quality question would be, how do I grow a profitable business that delivers value to customers, that makes $1 million in revenue and at least 50% profit margin, while still delivering so much value that my customers come back to me and tell their friends about the value I delivered to them? That's a better question to ask AI. So this is my point. You need to use it as a brainstorming partner, but you need to think carefully about what you're putting into it, what questions you're asking. Is this helpful? Can I get some feedback from you, Mohammed, or Jen, or Lee? Can you let me know if I'm completely confusing you or if I'm on track? Or maybe if you can just share some of, I've got to see love heart there, which is great. If you have any clarifying questions you want to ask, that will just help me tune this presentation, because I haven't done this in a long time. So I just want to make sure that I'm not just completely waffling, which I realize I am to some extent. So yeah, and I know there's a bit of a delay, so I won't probably see your questions for maybe 30 or 40 seconds maybe after you put it in. So please post your question as soon as you can, so that even if it's just to say, yes, I'm following, or no, I'm not following, something is good, because it just gives me some sense of feedback. Okay. So, how do you use artificial intelligence as a good brainstorming partner? Okay. So, Jen said, so you're saying the prompt really matters? Absolutely. Yes. That's a great clarifying question, Jen. Yes. The prompt really matters when you're using artificial intelligence. And if you put in a poor quality prompt, you're likely to get a poor quality answer. So, the quality of a prompt is a function of your life experience and the depth of your thinking. So here's a prompt that I often use that you might find useful. You might want to write this down. You ask AI, what, let's say you don't know much about, let's say you're trying to educate yourself or you're trying to create a presentation. I'm just going to make this up. Let's say I know nothing about artificial intelligence, but I want to use AI as a brainstorming partner. I don't know about artificial narrow intelligence. I don't already know about artificial general intelligence. I don't know about the Alan Turing test. I don't know about uh, large language models, none of that. So I might, one prompt I might use is I might say, I know nothing about artificial intelligence. Can you give me a brief outline? It's important to say brief because otherwise it'll give you pages of stuff and you'll never read it. Can you give me 5 bullet points explaining how artificial intelligence works and what I'm going to share my screen actually. Let's see. I'm guessing you guys can see this. Um, Here's an initial prompt I put in, but I'm going to put in this was an initial prompt, but I'm going to put in a prompt here. Let's pretend I know nothing about AI. So I'm going to put in, I know nothing about AI, but I'd like to learn about it. Can you give me a high level overview in 5 bullet points? Now, I don't want to know the War and Peace version, so I'm just going to ask for 5 bullet points because I want a high level overview. So here it explains it, right? AI computers can think ish, that can think ish. And I like the way it said that because it can't think fully yet, at least. It's about building machines that can perform tasks that are normally require human intelligence, like understanding language. It learns from data. So here you go. It's talking about, it doesn't talk about large language models here, but that's essentially what it's doing at the moment. There you go. It's talking about narrow AI and general AI, which I already mentioned earlier on. And then it's explaining it how it works under the hood. The most common approach is deep learning, neural networks. We talked about that as well at the start of this conversation. Systems find patterns and make predictions. My understanding is they do that in large language models. And why it matters, Netflix recommendations series. So as you know, Netflix has been around for a long time and has been using AI. Same with your Apple App Store and stuff like that. Okay. Now, I've got a bit of a slightly deeper understanding of AI. Here's another prompt you can put into AI to make sure that you're relatively well informed and you're kind of seeing around corners. This is my favorite prompt. What should I be asking you about AI that I'm not asking you right now? So it's kind of almost like you're living inside the subset, to use a mathematical um, framework or analogy, and you're asking, what is a superset? So it's very hard for us to understand, you know, it's like being a two-dimensional creature, being on a two-dimensional piece of paper, trying to see the world from a three-dimensional perspective. But this question kind of gives you that superpower. So, you know, here it's telling me the questions now that I should be asking it, right? How does AI actually work under the hood? What is the difference between AI, machine learning, and deep learning? We already touched on AI and machine learning. I didn't know about deep learning. There you go. Now I've learned something new. What can AI not do well today? See, that's a good question to ask, right? Practical use cases, 3 to 5 small. I'm already, talking about that because we're talking about the format framework. How do I pick the right AI tools? We already had that question in the chat. How does AI fit in the bigger picture, etc., etc. Now, interestingly enough, quite a few of these questions are questions that I was already going to touch on. I didn't think about privacy, so there's a good one. But do you see how that's a useful prompt? Let me know in the chat if. Thank you, Jen, for explaining. You can see my screen. I'm glad to hear that. Let me know in the chat if you found that those two prompts useful, so that I'm getting some feedback as well. Um, but yeah, that's a great prompt to use. What should I be asking you that I am not asking you? Or what should I have asked you that I haven't already asked you? Or give me an overview of whatever you're trying to learn from AI. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the fourth element of that format framework, originally created by Bernice McCarthy. And that is, what happens if you don't use artificial intelligence in business or your life? Well, I think if you don't use it, you're making a big mistake, because while artificial intelligence isn't a panacea, it doesn't solve everything. If you don't use it, you are losing out, you're missing out on a lot, mainly speed, but not only speed. Remember, most of these large language models, and we'll talk about the different options, AI options, in a minute, but most of these large language models have been trained on a huge part of the internet. I won't say the entire internet, but a very huge part of it. It's almost like they are omniscient. You know, the, the, the they've been everywhere the internet has been. And if you're not leveraging off of that, then you are at a massive disadvantage. Because guess what? All your peers, whether you're in business or whether you're working in knowledge as a knowledge worker, all your peers are probably using it. And if they're not, they too are at a disadvantage. It's not an option. Let me know in the chat if you agree with what I just said or not. It's not an option to use AI. You have to. That it's just, table stakes now. If you do use AI, what if you do use it? Well, you are doing the bare minimum, and maybe you're getting a bit of a leg up, right? Because there will be some Luddites among us who will be reluctant to use it, or who haven't gotten around to it yet, or who haven't learned enough about it, who haven't scratched the surface. So you have a little bit of a head start. And let's face it, all of us need all the help we can get. We have various challenges. Um, so let me know in the chat, are you using artificial intelligence every day? Yes or no? Please let me know. I can see there are 6 people on this chat, which is great, on this live, which is great. But let me know in the chat, are you using artificial intelligence? Yes or no? And if so, also please let me know in the chat, which tool are you using? Which brings me to the next piece of this live. So there are many tools out there. And one of them obviously is ChatGPT, which is probably the best known one. It was created by a company called OpenAI, which was founded by Sam Altman and Elon Musk and I think a couple other people. But there are other tools as well, and they seem to have their different specialties, if you like. ChatGPT seems to be quite good for research, but then there is a tool called Claude, which still does good research, but it is very good, I find, in terms of writing copy. And by copy, I mean if you want to write a landing page and you want to make it feel a bit more human and you want to make it feel a bit more personal, um, Claude seems to be a better go-to. Then there is other tools like Anthropic. I think Anthropic is a company. I think I can't remember what that tool is, but oh no, actually, I think Anthropic created Claude, and then there's Perplexity. That is actually particularly good for research because it offers you sources and so on. Yes, Claude, that's right, Mohammed. Thank you for sharing that. Perplexity was actually um, uh, is believed to be one of the better tools when it comes to research because it gives you the sources of where it got the data from if you want to go deeper into it. So if you're an academic and you want to, do research and be able to frequently you want to go and say, well, why are you making this claim, Mr. AI or Ms. AI? Where did you get this information from? It will give you references and it's a little bit better to use. And there's a bunch of other tools out there. There's a ton of them. Um, so it's a great brainstorming partner. It's a good research tool. And a related topic, which I won't go into detail because it's outside the scope of this live, is how Google search is definitely in decline, at least in my experience, because people are using artificial intelligence more and more. The blue link economy, as they used to call it, where you would type in a search question into Google and you get these blue links and you click on one of the links. Um, and it would take you off to somebody's website, and then you'd go to the website and maybe you'd buy something from the website. That is on it in decline. Why? Because now most of us are just going into ChatGPT, typing in a question. ChatGPT is going to all these websites, skimming the information, grabbing the essence of the information and responding on the chat. So you're never ending up on people's websites. And that's sort of killing the traditional Google search model, which is one of the reasons we've sort of move to YouTube. And speaking of YouTube, by the way, we've just launched our YouTube channel. If you want useful templates, frameworks, many more than we've talked about just now, um, definitely consider joining our YouTube membership, which is just $4.49 Australian per month. It's really, a no-brainer. You can cancel anytime. I'm going to put in the link for you to join. If you're interested. And you can join the Insiders Room at $4.49. This is, an introductory offer. Or you can join the Strategy Room for $10.49 Australian. And that's barely like $3 US for the starter, the first tier, which is Insider Room, and maybe $7 US or $6 US or whatever for the Strategy Room. And you get different perks and stuff. It's all explained in that link. But I would highly recommend considering that because we'll be dropping a lot of frameworks in there. So I'm going to bring this live to a close now because I've been rambling away and I just would love to get some feedback to know if you found this useful. We are going to be doing this again, probably next Friday at the same time. So let us know in the chat what topic you would like us to cover because we'd be happy to do that. We're happy to use AI to create some useful content. Um, and what would you like us to cover in the next live? And what did you find most useful in this live? What questions have I not answered that you would like me to have answered? And I would love to try and do that. Just leave those comments. I see a few love hearts going up, which is great. Thank you. I appreciate that feedback. If you have any questions, please ask them now or forever hold your pieces. That's a joke. Forever hold your peace. Because I'm not going to be around much longer, but I'm going to recap. So we talked about the format framework, which was created by Bernice McCarthy, and it's format spelled, I'm going to put that in the chat, format, and her name is Bernice McCarthy. We talked about the format framework, which is what we used to do this live. The format framework is: why is topic important to audience? What do we mean by topic? How do we apply topic to get result? And what if we don't or do use this topic to get to the result? So the way that would apply to this presentation, which is an artificial intelligence, is what do we Why is artificial intelligence important in business, marketing, and our lives? That's the why. That makes it relevant to the viewer. It makes them orient to the presentation and tune in. Um, what do we mean by artificial intelligence? And that's where we broke down narrow intelligence and general intelligence. And we didn't talk about super intelligence, which we can talk about in the future if you like. That gets a bit scary, but uh, it's out of the scope of this presentation. So we talked about the what, then we talked about the how. How do you use artificial intelligence in your daily lives, in your business? We talked about, I showed you the prompt that I shared, and then I gave you some specific prompts that you could be using. Um, prompts like, what did I ask you that? So, what should I have asked you that I did not ask you? Oh, you're welcome, Jen. I'm glad you found the insights useful. And give me the other prompt was, give me a 5 bullet point. You could ask 6 bullet points, 2 bullet points, whatever you want. Give me a 5 bullet point overview of the topic, in this case, artificial intelligence. And then the final part was, that's the how. And then the final part is, what if I do use it and don't use it? So, what if I do use artificial intelligence? Well, I'm going to be doing the bare minimum, I believe, to keep up with business and to build my business. And I'm going to stay relevant. And I'm not going to be at a competitive disadvantage. A lot of people would say it's a competitive advantage, and it is, but I would actually frame it as being minimum. You would, if you if you're using it, you're not at a competitive disadvantage. But yes, there's a lot of people who haven't gotten on the bandwagon yet, and that's, I believe, to their own detriment. And yes, you would be at a competitive advantage with those people. But man, it's table stakes. You got to be using AI in today's day and age. So that's about all I have for you today, folks. I am going to finish up in a few seconds, and I know that it takes about 40 seconds for the questions, maybe 50 seconds, maybe a minute for the questions to come through. So, do you have any closing questions or comments before I end this live? And what topic would you like me to cover in our next YouTube live, which I'm at this stage planning to do at the same time next week, which is Friday, 9 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, whatever that works out to be for wherever you are. I know a lot of Americans tune into our content, so it might be, I think, what is it, 7 p.m. Thursday in New York, and maybe 4 p.m. I think it is Thursday on the West Coast in Pacific time, or wherever that is. Sorry, I can't keep track with all your timings, but uh, let me know if you'd like me to do this again and what topics you'd like me to cover. I'm almost finished with this live. Um, Team, Jen and Lee, thank you so much for your support. Let's jump on Zoom and we can do a debrief and we can think about what we can do better next time. So I'm going to jump on Zoom now. I'm going to sign out of this live and I will see you guys in a week. Ciao for now. Oh, don't forget to join the membership. Bye for now.